Now, once we have found that these boards are glued up and dry, then we check the join, and it has a little discrepancy there, because in cabinet making your tolerance is 1/2 mil, whereas in carpentry, in housing construction, it's 2 mil. So anything bigger than 2 mil will not be acceptable. So we need to sand that down so that we have a nice flat surface. So what we use is called a belt sander. Right, it has a belt on the base which runs forward and will take off the majority of the material that's offending. And if you do a lot of sanding with this, despite the dust bag that collects the majority of the dust that comes off it, you will want to wear one of these, because doing a lot of sanding, it sends a lot of dust in the air. Shavings from planing and drilling, they don't normally become airborne, but dust does, and it's not good for your lungs. So long-term jobs with these, masks. So I'm going to show you first the operation on a belt sander, and then I'll show you how to change belts. So this is the piece here that's offending. It's about 1/2 mil higher. So I'm going to concentrate on that. And what we do, we sand across the grain in this case. Beautiful. Now you will notice that I don't leave the sander in one spot too long, because if it keeps going, it will gouge a hollow into your wood and will destroy it. So when you're finished with it and you're happy with the actual height and it's all nice and flush, then we run it this way. Well, I won't use that one because it's not dry. So we run it down the grain. And that will re-establish the nice smooth surface by just holding it gently. Don't push on it, no need for that. The weight of the machine will do the job. Just guide it and move it around all the time. You don't want it running on your wood. Now, to change the belt, as you can see, some of it here, it's got a bit of sawdust embedded into the belt, and the more the belt has been clogged up, the less efficient the belt is. So what we do first of all, as always, unplug the power tool, and on here there's a lever which gets released, and then you can pull the belt out like that. Now on these belts, they come in different gratings or grits. You can get a really rough one, like a 60 grit or an 80 grit, that will really take the material away. So if you're doing landscaping and you've got sleepers or other timbers that are really rough and you want to smooth them down to match the others, get yourself a different belt that's got a much higher grit rating, or lower grit rating. So it's 60 or 80, and the higher rating, this is a 120. So it's got the grit rating inside it, and it also, if you can see it, it's got arrows. I don't know if you can see it. It's got arrows inside the belt, which gives you the direction of the belt. It's got the arrow here that shows you the direction of the belt, which should run forward. So you slip that over the edge. A little bit of patience. Right. There we go. Now lock it in place. In other words, the roller goes back forward and puts tension on the belt. Now before you start, make sure that the belt runs true, because if you don't, it could run off. You watch the, right, it's there, like that, it's in the middle, apparently in the middle. Now we plug it back in. By the way, don't plug the machine in if your trigger is in lock. Because if it's in lock, because of that button there being embedded in the handle, make sure it's released. You plug that in, the belt sander will take off. The belt will just pull the thing right across the bench or across your job and damage it. So make sure your switch is off before you plug it back in. Now, I'll show you how that belt can run off. Right, now it's running true. But I'll adjust the camber on the wheel to show you that it can run off. Now the belt's running true on the roller, and you can continue on and get all the scratch marks out and end up with a nice flat surface. When you've done that, then it's time to finish sanding, not just to belt sand. So we'll go to a different machine, the Orbital. Now it's called Orbital because the plate underneath goes around like that. There's a cam inside the motor. It causes the plate to vibrate. Right, and again, you don't have to push on it. All you do is guide it gently and slowly around the surface that you're sanding. So I've got a 180 grit paper on there, which is a reasonable grit for sort of wood. If you do really fine work and you want to use a high gloss finish, then you need to go to 240 for a really beautiful finish on your timber. So what you do, you just hold it in place and just let it run. Again, dust will become airborne, so again, protect your lungs with one of these. Now that is a beautiful surface, and that can be, if it's open grain, it can be filled with a grain filler, which is a special process before it gets stained and varnished, or you just leave it and varnish it as it is. Now the paper, when it gets clogged up, it can be removed by releasing the two levers on the plate. You pull them back and you pull the paper off. Right, front and back. Stack them again so they're not a hazard. And then you can get a roll or a sheet of sandpaper to the choice that you want. This is a P or 180 grit. You can get a finer one, you can get a coarser one. For painting walls, etc., I use 100 or 120, depending on the finish I want on my plaster. And all you do is just cut a piece out, the identical width and length of the piece you took off, and just replace it. And then you keep going, irrespective of the sawdust that's clogged in there. So that's basically belt sanding, finish sanding, And if you've got edges and things like that to do, you've got to do them by hand. Because if you sand across like that and put too much pressure on the front or the back, you will find that the wood will sand back and you'll have a undulating surface. So always sand it that way, and if you go close to the edge, try not to tip it over unless you want to sand the corner, either side. Just move it along and keep the majority of the machine on the surface so it doesn't give you a curved finish on the edges. So, not a lot of effort required, but a certain amount of technique, and use personal protective equipment for the dust. Also, when you're doing plastering, when you're sanding on the ceiling, after you've plastered up, use the correct gear, like have a hat on, goggles. You don't want plaster dust in your eyes, and that won't be sufficient because it will fall down on top of you and you'll go like this for the rest of the day. Not good. So, power tools, again, all need a lead. So that's the only drawback. So if you're out on site somewhere, you'll need a generator, unless you've got a power source available. So if you're out in the bush, you want to build a log cabin or a weekender, you're going to need hand tools. They never let you down. They get the job done, not as quickly, but they get the job done if you've got the skills.